Saturday night, 7 p.m. The lights will be shining in Bryant-Denny Stadium for USF versus Alabama. I'm so excited for this game. So excited to get into this. And USF is going to upset Alabama. And welcome into a Monday edition of the Sunshine State Sports Rundown, a daily podcast for all things Florida sports. USF is coming off a dominant win versus Bethune-Cookman 48-3, and the momentum from last year's 45-point bowl game win against Syracuse in the Boca Raton Bowl is just continuing to add on. Confidence is growing, belief is growing, and the identity of this team is just stronger than ever. So let's talk about it. So first off, we said USF is going to beat Alabama. And I know what you're thinking, JJ. Are you kidding? You just said USF is going to be the standard program of college football, a team that is the best college football program in the last 15 years, no debate. I did say that. So when you're able to beat a team, there has to be points in the game where one team has an advantage over another. And we're going to talk about the advantages that USF has over Alabama and some other things that USF needs to do to prove us right and for them to upset the Alabama Crimson Tide. So let's look at where USF has advantages to where Alabama doesn't. So first up, when I look at this USF team, something I'm looking at is their running game, and their running game is absolutely excellent. Kelly Joyner Jr. went off last game, rushing for 78 yards and 2 touchdowns. His speed is electric. He's someone who wants to run it down your throat. He can go inside and outside. He's also someone who can block very well. And the reality of it is he's a great running back, all around running back. But not only do you have him, you have other guys in the running room that can take off and have bursts of speed. This running back room is so deep. Taryn Keith got 7 carries. Yasir Young got 7 carries. Naquan Wright got 7 carries and a touchdown. Keith got a touchdown as well. And Byron Brown, your quarterback, a dual threat quarterback, someone who can scramble as well, is excellent as well at running. We saw him on that one play. I believe it was a 16-yard rushing touchdown where he rolled out left, took off with his legs, extended his arm so the ball would reach the goal line, and he just got in with Breeze, no one near him. So he just feels like he's a natural type of runner, someone that I highly respect. The dual threat in Byron Brown. And why do I mention the running game for USF with their amazing, outstanding running backs in Kelly Joyner, Taryn Keith, Yassis Young? Well, what stops a running back room? And that's the defensive line. And let's be quite frank, this Alabama defensive line is not up to standard. And I would argue it is one of the worst defensive lines in the SEC. You have guys on the defensive line that are solid interior defensive linemen. Apologies. Yeah, if I said offensive lineman, correct me. Correct me if I'm wrong. Don't fault me for it. Just mixing up words. But defensive line, to get it 100% straight. LT Overton will be leading the ways, the returner at left end for the Crimson Tide. You also have other guys on the defensive line, like LaMarcus Fox, like Damon Payne. So it's not as good as a defensive line where we saw first round pick year after year with Will Anderson Jr. and guys that are absolute freaks on the defensive line like Alabama in the past. It's not that. You don't have any guys who are going to be in the top 5, top 3 rounds, I'll say. And USF is super solid in the running game. So if they can exploit that Alabama defensive line, they should be able to put up a lot of yards through the ground and end up being able to move the change, pick up first down yardages, which is something that I would be not surprised if they do. Another huge advantage for the USF Bulls is not just the running back room. It's USF. It's USF's wide receivers. And we mentioned the wide receivers and the running backs, but this wide receiver room is truly something that is special. It's extra. It's extra. We were obviously expecting Sean Atkins, the sort of speedier wide receiver with a high football IQ, someone who I compare a lot to Cooper Kupp to be the number one guy. But Abdul Rahim Yassine was excellent. He was running flats and dump routes and was able to get open this Saturday versus Bethune Cookman. And Alabama's secondary again isn't good. Their defense overall is not as solid. Yes, you have guys at safety, which are super good. But other than Malachi Moore at safety, who else do you have? There's a huge drop in production. Keon Sabb is someone as well at strong safety who is very versatile, has great vision for the field, and can definitely contain big passes. But other than that, this secondary is not one that impresses me to former Alabama secondaries. So that said, we talked about the defensive line and the secondary. And yes, at safety, Alabama is good. But I'm talking about linebacker and corner. This isn't their year, other than Deontay Lawson at linebacker. Now, something that does concern me for USF is their D line going up against Alabama's O line. Alabama has arguably the best offensive line in the country. But let's talk a little bit about this USF defense and Alabama offense. So when you look at the Alabama offense, you turn to the offensive line. Tyler Booker, Jaden Roberts, both at left and right guard, respectively. Guys that can hold their ground, super strong, not going to let anyone pass them. You also go down to other positions, other key elements, and guys who are super talented. Wilkin Formby at right tackle. And the center position also, you probably have the best center in the country in Parker Brace. For him or the guy on USC, in my opinion, are the best center in the country. So USF's D line is going to have to be able to contain that. I'd like them to stack the box. You have guys like Scholler at right linebacker, where he can stack the box. He can bring a little linebacker blitz. I wouldn't be opposed to maybe a double DB blitz. But you have other guys like Blue Ellie at defensive tackle, Cheney as well. So USF is going to be able to contain and not let this Alabama offensive line block all over them. So speaking of that, let's talk about the skill positions on offense for Alabama. Jaden Milroe is someone who I feel as if is overrated, and I think USF secondary is going to be able to contend him quick. When you think of the USF secondary, one thing comes to mind, and that is their absolute stud beast at the cornerback position, Amarius Brown-Berkeley. Amarius Brown-Berkeley is returning for the Bulls for another season. And he had 40 tackles last season, and 2 interceptions. His total stats are 63 tackles and 4 picks. So, Amarius Brown is someone excellent on this Bulls team. If they're able to stop Jalen Milroe and this Alabama offense, I think it's only up from here. Other than that, the wide receiver position is a huge concern and weakness in this Alabama team. Jeremy Bernard is good. He's a really good route runner, so you have to watch out for that. Kobe Prentice is good, but there's a huge gap in talent from the former Alabama wide receivers that we're used to seeing first and second round picks. Their running backs are absolutely insane, and their offensive line is insane, so that just adds another weakness. Jam Miller, Justice Haynes. But overall, the big thing for us is Alabama played USF last year. Alabama was coming off a loss to Texas. People were expecting them to come in hungry, come in excited, absolutely destroy them. Actually, they weren't coming off a loss to Texas. That was the game before the game. And then after the loss to Texas, they beat up on a FCS school and then played USF. But this USF team, they're better. They have a better offensive line than Alabama's defensive line, and they have better wide receivers than the secondary that Alabama has. Their running backs and wide receivers, the primary starness of this team, where this team shines, is better than Alabama's. So I know it was a shorter video. We wanted to get this in for the USF fans. Shout out to all the USF fans. We have a huge USF fan base on the FL Team's YouTube channel. Thank you all so much for watching this video of the FL Team's podcast. And remember, this is the Sunshine State Sports Rundown.